If you're anything like me, at some point you've looked up videos on tips for documentary filmmaking, and chances are you've seen a lot of content that's specifically about the creative side of the process, like how to light an interview. And to be fair, those are some of the most important things to learn when it comes to shooting docs. But since I'm a new channel, I don't really think that I'm the best person to speak on that, just because there are tons of other creators out there who have already covered that extremely well. So instead, I'm going to take the experience that I've had shooting documentaries, primarily as a solo filmmaker, but also as part of a crew, and break down some of the more overlooked things to keep in mind when planning your next shoot. So back when I was first starting out, I was so obsessed with the technical side of filmmaking. I was a total gearhead. I loved watching videos about the latest cameras and lenses. I followed companies like Zacuto and Pro-Aim and all of those other companies out there that made all these different accessories that you could add to your camera rig. I wasn't just fixated on making my shots look better and building up a better kit, but there was also this element of vanity to it as well, and it's something that really makes me cringe whenever I look back on it. This happened early in my career, and I hadn't really experienced shooting like this abroad ever before. When it came time to build out my travel kit, I brought way more stuff than I actually needed. Like a clunky shoulder rig, a monopod, a cheap Steadicam that I got off Amazon. In the right scenario, all of those things I just mentioned would serve a purpose. Well, maybe not that cheap Steadicam, but the fact is, for that trip, all of those things stayed in the hotel for 99% of the time. We spent a lot of our time in a van traveling the countryside, so all I could bring with me was my camera, a tripod, and a backpack that had the lenses, batteries, and a wireless lav mic. And that's pretty much what I used to shoot everything on that trip. We moved around a lot, and there wasn't time to fiddle with a Steadicam or light a whole lot of interviews, and that shoulder rig I mentioned, I think I mainly brought that to flex on Instagram that I was shooting in South Africa. Again, super cringe. I hate myself for doing it. I really can't stress that enough. So contrast that experience to a documentary we shot in Japan back in 2019. We were way more selective about the gear we brought. 2 cameras, 2 lenses, 2 tripods, a lav, a strong key light with a portable softbox, and even a little slider. We brought this little guy. It's called the Wing, and it's made by a company called Edelkrone. It actually came in handy quite a bit, and it was small, portable, and it didn't feel like it was weighing us down. So when it comes to gear, don't overthink it. It's just like Italian cuisine. It's all about simplicity and using quality ingredients. If you're shooting a project by yourself and you know it's going to be very run and gun, bring what you could fit in a backpack, because that's really all you need. I'm always looking for ways to make my kit more efficient. So if you're somebody who shoots documentaries abroad and you're used to traveling with, 1 or 2 things of luggage, let me know what's in your camera bag, because I'm always looking for new tips and tricks on how to make my own setup more efficient. So this is something I feel isn't touched on as much when people talk about documentary filmmaking advice. It's easy to get hung up on things like what cameras and what lenses to use and what kind of shots you want to get, the look you're going for, and how you plan to bring it all together in the edit. If you're a camera operator or a DP, then those are some of the most important things you need to keep in mind and kind of all you really need to think about. But if you're somebody looking to produce and direct your own documentary films, then you first need to find your story. And in order to do that, you need to network and build relationships. So that documentary shoot in Japan I mentioned I did earlier, that trip happened in 2019, but I first got the idea for that doc back in 2014. I was a big fan of this video game called Shenmue, and I wanted to make a short documentary where I interviewed hardcore fans of the game about why they loved it and how it changed their lives. This game has a bit of a cult following, and finding true fans of the game isn't as easy as going down to your local GameStop. I started out on forums and fan pages, and then slowly I began the process of networking and meeting the kind of people that I wanted to interview. Eventually, I built up the courage to start reaching out to different people that weren't fans of the games, like voice actors and larger YouTubers, video game developers, and even people with really senior roles in video game companies like Sony and Sega. And how did I do that? Well, first it was through a very awkward process of just sending out cold emails via LinkedIn or to a general inquiries email on a company's website. I even straight up found people on Facebook and I reached out to them via Messenger, which, looking back on that, I'm surprised it even worked. As you do this, as you continue to network and build those relationships, it becomes a lot easier to reach out to new people because now you have somebody that could vouch for you. This can be anything from having somebody introduce you to someone else via an introductory email, or just straight up DMing someone on social media, but now you might have a few mutual friends in common, which lets that person know that you aren't a total stranger. I put a lot of legwork and networking into this passion project that started out as a short documentary, and I was able to eventually grow it into a feature-length film with a budget and a crew, and it was all because of the relationships that I had made along the way. Also, another thing that people tend to forget is a lot of times people just want to help other people. If you reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm making a film, I have this idea, I'd love it if I could interview you, it would be a huge help, would you be interested? A lot of times people see what you're doing, they see it as a genuine thing, and they say, hey, I think I want to help this person out, I'll do that for them, they seem passionate about it. Never underestimate humanity's nature to just want to help somebody, because you'll be surprised more often than not. This next tip is very important, not just for documentary, but for corporate video as well, and that is to pay attention to the audio. And I'm not just talking about sound quality here, but what is actually being said, because it will save you tons of time in the edit. It sounds obvious, but here's a quick example of what I mean. I was shooting a series of interviews of small business owners who had applied for a grant, and the videos that we were making were going to be used to promote the grant application process in the future. So I was running all of the sound, camera, and all the technical stuff, and someone from the grant organization was conducting the interviews. Once I had everything set up, I hit record, and they had their conversation. And while that was happening, I scrolled Instagram, checked my email, and occasionally monitored the audio and battery life. I wasn't really paying attention to anything that was being said, but the conversation sounded natural, and the person being interviewed was very well spoken. So I assumed that when it came time to edit, it would be easy to pull out the best sound bites. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out that I was right. I'm kidding, I was wrong, it was horrible. It turned out that a lot of what was being said wasn't even usable. The person was very comfortable on camera, but they just kept rambling and going on and on all these different tangents. They would start answering a question, but then change it every few sentences and never really finish a coherent thought. This genuinely shocked me because after we wrapped, I was chatting with the person who conducted the interview, and we both agreed that they had done a really, really great job, and so much of what they said would be usable. I guess some people are just naturally charismatic, and they could effortlessly lead a conversation by sounding confident, even though nothing they said had any real value. That's a great skill to have if you're a politician giving a speech, but I guess not for somebody doing an interview on camera. Now, if I wasn't on my phone and I was actively paying attention, I could have caught this and helped guide the interview to where I think it should go. So my last tip is kind of similar to the last one, but it's probably the most important one when it comes to solo documentary filmmaking, and that is to develop your soft skills. In my experience, these are things that you can't traditionally learn from a book or by taking a course or going to film school. They're things that you just kind of need to go out and do and experience by yourself until it becomes second nature. A really good example of this is communication skills, like how to properly talk to somebody when you are interviewing them on camera, conflict management skills, public speaking, critical thinking, collaboration. These are all things that not only make us better filmmakers, but they allow us to lead more confident lives. I'm somebody who's always been an introvert, and I still am in many ways. But I can easily say that working on my soft skills is something I wish I did way earlier in life. It really is amazing how you grow as a person when you step outside your comfort zone. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, so I'm using this channel as a way to help others who are just starting out in their filmmaking journey. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing if you enjoy these types of videos and want to see more content like this in the future. I'll see you in the next one.